In a night where stars dared to peek through heavy clouds of dust and smoke, an American infantry soldier sat perfectly still in the heart of dense jungle foliage that blanketed everything with its oppressive embrace. The humidity hung like wet fog around his uniform as droplets clung to it reluctantly. He could feel them dampening each movement, a constant reminder of nature's resistance against foreign encroachment. The only sounds that echoed in the stillness were insect chirps and distant howls from other soldiers, or symphony of life indifferent to human affairs or ambitions. As his breathing became rhythmic with this natural cadence, he felt an aching solitude among these untamed woods, a man out of place amidst the ancient land that had once been home to generations before him and countless species now lost in time's relentless march forward. He closed his eyes for just long enough for brief pause from reality, where thoughts turned inward towards reflections on life back stateside. Those mundane days of laughter-filled barracks nights with friends who had become distant memories now felt like a world away. But here he was, ensnared by duty and patriotism that bound his hands to the oath taken upon enlisting, or solemn promise made in haste but meant for eternity's keeping. A sudden rustle disturbed the silence. Leaves whispered secrets as shadows danced just beyond perception, where night seemed an endless expanse stretching far into oblivion without a trace of dawn's warmth to pierce through darkness or dispel uncertainty among men-at-arms who shared this disorientating journey across half the world. The soldier turned his head slowly towards movement, eyes straining for clarity, yet met with nothing more than an unfathomable void or chilling reminder of how thin life's thread could be here between jungle and sky. Fear is a silent sentinel in the backdrop of everyday existence, but tonight it wore its head high. One cannot help feeling vulnerable under such circumstances when each step becomes an act against unseen adversaries who lurk, breathing down your neck, with no sign nor sound to betray their presence. He remembered tales from his father's time, or veteran of a different war, where battlefields were painted in blues and greens instead of these oppressive blacknesses that swallowed everything whole. How they spoke reverently about honor, sacrifice, brotherhood born out of shared hardship among men whose purpose was clear-cut like daylight through an open window. Now, as his hand unconsciously reached for a water flask, a remnant from home's comforting embrace, where cool streams ran freely in Cleveland 015, he realized that even this simple act of hydration felt alien here in the heartland of conflict, far removed from civilized life. Yet, amidst dissonance between his surroundings and memories, their offer melancholic harmony struck within him as waves crashed on distant shores, unfelt by tired souls, while thoughts returned like echoing boots upon hollow ground, a cycle endlessly repeating in the mind's eye of one who knows no respite nor escape. A faint glow emanated from above, not unlike fireflies choreographed to nature's own silent tune beneath an indigo sky that held secrets too profound for human understanding or articulation, a reminder how life's beauty persists even amidst devastation. But he shrugged off such thoughts as fleeting distractions, easily dismissed by one who has come face to face with mortality itself on more than just battleground, but within these very depths where civilization meets its demise at hands of mankind's own doing or place, far removed from peace, truth, or any semblance thereof. The soldier's breath hitched, a twinge in his gut whispering caution, as an unfamiliar rustling took precedence over the background hum he had grown accustomed to throughout these days spent on foreign soil, a reminder that danger often strikes when least expected, cloaked behind silence's veil or nestled between foliage where light dare not venture. His heartbeat quickened, adrenaline surged, as instinct takes command without regard for reason's pleas or the mind's grasp on understanding. An uncanny sensation felt deep within core of being, an echoing pulse racing through every fiber that once knew comfort and safety, now lost to time. It was here in this forsaken place that he found solace, or perhaps the only semblance thereof left to him, as his unit had been decimated during an ambush months prior, a day when time itself seemed too slow and every second stretched into eternity under a scorching sun. As nightly shadows played tricks upon the walls of this empty room, he often found himself transported back in time to those moments before chaos had enveloped their camp like an unforgiving storm, or harrowing memory that haunted him as vividly now as it once did then. The soldier remembered running through dense foliage under the bright moonlight, his boots sinking slightly into damp earth with each hastened step, He had been desperately trying to find a way out of this nightmarish reality that seemed perpetually trapped in horror's grip around him. There was an eerie calmness back Fenner deceptive peace before the cacophony of gunfire shattered it all, leaving nothing but fear and loss behind as he sought refuge under a canopy of whispering leaves, only to find himself face to face with his own mortality in that very cradle, now alone save for what seemed like echoes inside the chambers of an empty mind, and yet those same sounds lived vividly within him, as if time had looped upon itself, and he was no longer a stranger to this place, but its sole occupant once more. The soldier remembered how his heart pounded in rhythm with each thunderous beat that reverberated through the night during confrontations. It seemed impossible then not to feel like just another note within an orchestra of chaos, and even when all was said and done, when victory had been claimed at horrendous cost, he recalled finding solace in brief respite under a shaded oak with its expansive branches that provided shelter from the relentless sun during lulls between bouts of gunfire. This tree stood as an unwitting testament to nature's stoicism amid humanity's own devastation, a reminder etched into his memory like a landmark on some unseen map he was no longer certain existed. Each time the soldier had sought refuge beneath its protective bough, it seemed that momentary peace offered an escape from the ever-present spectre of death looming over him. Each leaf rustling in the wind carried promises whispered by ancient trees who stood witness to countless tales unfold and conclude with little regard for human affairs. It was under this very tree, or what remained by a gnarled trunk scarred from past encounters, that he now lay listening intently, as if expecting its age-old wisdom might somehow seep through the cracks in his spirit, or reach out to steady him once more amongst shifting sands of time. He thought back fondly upon how even amidst this war's darkness, where friendships had become mere memories lost beneath waves and ash, where laughter was reduced to stifled gasps for air as bodies collided with unyielding ground, there were brief interludes when humanity's essence endured in the quiet solidarity found between warriors who sought solace within shared loss. In his mind's eye he could almost feel at comfort wrapping around him like a shroud, as though it too understood suffering and sacrifice. Memories of camaraderie now seemed etched with pain upon souls forever changed by the cruelties they had endured, told for each face hauntingly familiar in its scars, both visible and invisible. It was here where he remembered hearing whispers carried on breezes that spoke truths about life beyond this war, tales of peaceful villages untouched by strife or sorrow. Those words seemed like distant echoes from a forgotten world, as if their voices had been muted for eternity in the shadows cast beneath his feet. The soldier sighed a sound that felt alien to him now, though he knew it was all too common among survivors, who found themselves grasping at tendrils of hope even when they seemed as elusive and transient as smoke rising into thin air. Memories stirred within his amidst a world battered by relentless conflict and fading spirits of camaraderie that once defined their lives. There emerged in whispers on cool evenings an ethereal sense of something beyond war, a promise whispered between the rustling leaves, peace. In these rare moments when nightfall offered respite from constant turmoil, a soldier named Elliot would find himself alone at his campfire's edge as he looked up to where darkness met stars just above him. It was here that the tales of tranquility began seeping into his consciousness like gentle rain on parched soil. The whispers told stories of villages untouched by war, fields lying dormant under a serene sky, an image so starkly different from what he had known in recent times as chaos washed over cities and towns alike with an unforgiving tide. In these narratives that carried the weight of distant lands, tranquility on their shoulders, Elliot felt himself sinking into reveries where laughter mingled freely like a bubbling brook rather than gasped breaths under oppressive air above ground and sea alike. Tales spun by an old storyteller who claimed to have seen these utopias with his own eyes. And one evening, as Elliot's tired eyelids fluttered open from the exhaustion of yet another silent battleground where only echoes remained, he found himself inexplicably transported into that ancient world beyond war, a place untouched by sorrow and strife, but lush with verdure. It was a realm painted with hues so vibrant they seemed to defy the monochrome palette of his reality. Here every blade of grass swayed in harmony, an orchestra playing for each breeze that swept through its foliage as if orchestrated by nature itself. Eliot's journey carried him along rolling hills carpeted with fields where children danced under the sun's benevolent gaze, a sight unmarred even momentarily, yet so alien and comforting to his war-weary heart that tears threatened their wellsprings at each step. The air was thick with sweet scents of jasmine. It whispered secrets through petals as delicate fingers tracing paths over the earth's soft surface where flowers unfurled in blissful abandonment, oblivious to human folly and bloodshed that had no place here among their innocents. He stumbled upon a village nestled within an embrace of nature's bounty where homes crafted from wood embraced warmth rather than the harsh steel barricades he was accustomed to, where artisans weaved beauty into tapestries and potters molded earth with gentle reverence. There, children played not out of fear or obligation, but pure joy or symphony conducted by laughter that resonated through every cobblestone street lined with windows adorned in flowers instead of the grimy visage they bore back home under siege from an unseen enemy's shadow. In this enchanting world, Eliot encountered a blind bard who regaled him with tales not just about peaceful villages, but also spoke poetically to his own soul. He sang psalms that told of love and loss without the stench of blood on their verses, or stark contrast from what had been etched into every crease upon both Eliot's face and hands. The bard's voice, though muted in physical form as was expected by his blindness, seemed to fill an empty chasm within him that no artillery fire could ever reach. It resonated with the depth of a shared humanity beyond warfare, a symphony for those who had forgotten how music sounded before discord ravaged their ears. Eliot listened intently as melodies intertwined like lovers' fingers, each note plucking at his heartstrings until they danced in harmony with the bard's lyrics, or tune so hauntingly familiar that it seemed to echo a shared memory of humanity long lost amidst warfare. As dusk settled upon this peaceful land and stars began their night-long vigil, Eliot felt his heart constrict in place where pain once resided. He understood now the true essence of solace, not just within survival, but living amongst memories that soared beyond mere existence to touch on a profound connection between every person's spirit. As dawn approached and reality in its merciless march returned, Eliot found himself standing once more before his own campfire under the stark light of day. However, he felt as in chapter 4 of our tale, through time's tapestry unraveled and rewoven by memory, Eliot found himself not merely as a survivor, but as part of something greater, a thread intertwined with every heartbeat that had ever thrived in this land. The bard's song lingered long after the last ember died down to glowing coals, and faded stars watched over them, their celestial eyes holding stories older than any soul's memory of home or hearth. The next day brought sunlight that seemed even brighter for its contrast against Eliot's past darkness. It washed the landscape in a golden hue as he rose with new-found purpose within his chest, her tiny ember glowing steadily, untouched by war's shadow. His fingers caressed tools worn from use, but still held firmly to their tasks of rebuilding lives lost and lands ravaged beneath artillery's raw. Eliot met others like him at Dorm. Each carried scars, not just on bodies or landscapes, but within the creases etched across their face, each line a story untold, save for this night under stars, silent vigilance, and daylight rebirth. Their shared pain whispered through Eliot's veins as he worked alongside them to sow seeds of life in soil soaked with sorrow. His hands moved deftly, planting hope where once only despair took root. The air was filled not just with the scent of earth and growth, but also a subtle fragrance that seemed like remnants from happier times, or sweetness Eliot thought he had forgotten long ago. It now perfumed his surroundings, wrapping them in invisible threads binding all to each other. The bard's lullaby played softly through the rustling leaves and sighing wind, as if nature itself was reciting ancient songs of peace that humankind once knew well before their discord fractured harmony into dissonance. In his tent, Eliot gathered with others to share tales not just for entertainment, but because stories were lifeblood, or way to keep memories alive and pass them down like torches of light in darkened times when shadows sought too eagerly to claim the world's soul as their own. Each word they shared was a testament. Every laugh that followed bore witness to resilience. Each tear shed an acknowledgment of grief so profound it seemed impossible for such sorrow not to break through even in this small oasis away from war's cruelty. One day, amidst the rebuilding efforts, came when Eliot encountered a young boy whose eyes mirrored his own reflection of loss and hopeful light that refused to be snuffed out by gloom's relentless grip upon their world. He spoke little, for words had become scarce in this place, where survival often meant saying less rather than more. But when Elliot offered the boy a hand or an ear to listen to a simple act of kindness from one who knew all too well how it felt not just to live through war, but also its aftermath, they worked together, and as they did so, their hands met in shared labor which became like fingers meeting across lifelines. The boy taught Elliot new names for every plant he recognized or language of life that had been silenced by conflict's deafening blare until it echoed again through these living conduits. As time folded upon itself, and night once more held sway over landscapes scarred but not yet forgotten, Elliot found himself under the same stars where he first heard tales of unity spun with threads stronger than steel woven into songs that cradled souls in their darkest hours. They spoke to one another without needing words, for sometimes silence held more empathy and understanding when voices failed amidst a backdrop of loss so immense it dwarfed individual griefs, like distant stars against the night sky's vast expanse. There were moments beneath this blanket of heaven where Elliot felt his spirit waver, tremor caused by memories not yet fully buried, ghosts from past traumas that sought to unravel even as he and others gathered in solidarity around the flickering campfire's comforting warmth. The bard's voice would rise then, a beacon through misty-eyed nostalgia. His melodies were threads of silver light pulling Elliot back from sorrowful edges towards heartland where human connection thrived despite hardship, and pain, a place within him that had always been there, but needed the right song to reveal itself. Throughout these, as nights stretched into evenings and as days bled one into another beneath a sky that seemed to weep in perpetual twilight, Elliot found himself at an ancient stone circle where silence was not merely golden but sacred, a place forgotten by time yet remembered through tales passed down like heirlooms of the soul. In this hallowed ground stood 4 towering stones with petroglyphs that told stories older than any living memory. They were silent witnesses to countless sunsets and dawnings, a testament to unity in times when men came together not out of necessity but from shared reverence for life's tapestry. Elliot traced the lines etched into stone with his fingertips, as if seeking answers whispered by those who had once walked these same paths, an act that was, at its core, a ritual to connect and be connected across eons of silence broken only during moments such as this. Around him were others like Elliot, their faces etched with the weight of history, but whose spirits shone brightly in defiance against despair's dark shroud. As they gathered together, a bard named Aria joined the masked storyteller whose voice carried not just tales from times immemorial but also songs that tugged at heartstrings and mended invisible tears within souls weary of their burdensome histories. Each note she played on her lute was imbued with the essence of healing, a remedy for wounds deep-seated in flesh as much as spirit. They were harmonious melodies that seemed to dance just beyond human hearing but found home within Elliot's heart when least expected. Their conversations often meandered through topics untouchable by the hands of time, the essence of joy, love lost and regained in ways no one could quantify with mere words or numbers. They were stories told not to entertain, but rather to heal as much for listeners' ears as their hearts. And beneath this blanket of heaven where once dormant tales stir alive again, through shared communion, under the ancient stones, Elliot felt his spirit waver more than before, not with fear or doubt, but a realization that within him churned memories not yet fully buried, echoes from past traumas seeking solace in Solidar 035. A bard named Lyra joined them on these evenings under the stars as well, her voice and storytelling weaving through tales of resilience, their testament to human spirit's unyielding will against adversity's relentless tide. As time folded upon itself like pages in a book that refused an end, these gatherings became sacred rituals for Elliot. They were both his anchor and compass through the turbulence of existence, a reminder that he was not alone even when solitude seemed most poignant. And while their voices would rise then amidst misty-eyed nostalgia under this firmament where once conflict had raged, it now served as a sanctuary for Elliot and his kindred spirits to find strength in shared histories, an ember of hope sparking resilience within the chill night's air. Elliot began to understand that even amidst loss so immense that individual grief felt like distant stars against this expanse, there was a place where hearts could beat as one and souls could find solace in each other, a refuge for human connection thriving despite the pain of yesteryears. In these moments by night's light, when they stood together atop ancient stones listening to Aria's lute or Lyra's tales, a thread within Elliot glowed brighter with purpose and resolve as he realized that his path was not just about reclaiming memories, but also weaving them into the fabric of know or beacon for others finding their way through darkness. As night deepened its embrace around him on this special evening, a cool breeze carrying stories from afar carried whispers to Elliot's ears, tales not his own that spoke with voices he had never met but whose spirits resonated within the core of who he was becoming, a mosaic crafted by shared experiences and psalms. And while each story told beneath these stars brought comfort, it also promised growth as they journeyed together through layers upon layers of history folded into their present selves, a collective memory that shaped them even in ways unseen to the eye, but felt profoundly within the soul's quietest chambers. As dawn threatened with fingers golden and gentle against an indigo sky, Elliot knew he would carry these night encounters there, laughter mingling with tears in Chapter 6, as if guided by a gentle hand through time's fabric, weaving together past and present into one seamless tapestry of shared experiences. Elliot found himself within an ancient grove where history had whispered secrets to him before, a place known only in dreams. The night was thick with the warmth of connection that seemed almost tangible as he stood beside his companions under a canopy woven from silver moonlight and glimmering stars, their faces illuminated by an ethereal light not seen but deeply felt through stories untold before. The air around them was alive with the scent of blooming night flowers, or natural perfume that seemed to hum softly in tune with Aria's lute and Lyra's voice, each note a thread pulling Elliot closer into their shared dream world where history lived as vivid memory. With every strawman's story told by his friends, the grove around them began transforming. Trees grew twisted roots that snaked upwards like tendrils of thought reaching for wisdom from below, an ancient network pulsating with life's essence. Elliot felt a subtle shift within himself as Lyra recounted tales passed down through generations, her words imbuing the air around them with power and purpose that seemed to transcend time itself. Stories of old warriors who had once found solace in this very grove now melded into Elliot's heartbeat, her drum echoing across epochs, promising strength drawn from their unity against adversity long past, but never forgotten. As the night progressed, he listened intently to Aria's tales of love that bloomed like these flowers in secret corners where shadows danced with light. Her stories painted pictures on his mind's eye filled with colors bright and deep as if they were realities awaiting just beneath surfaces. And there was Lyra again, whispered secrets from a time when the world seemed to hold magic at every turn, of mysteries uncovered by kindred spirits who had followed their hearts across lands that lay hidden in dreams until this very momentous night, where Elliot's own heart felt its first beat. The air grew cooler as they ventured deeper into tales, and time towed for a journey through the lives intertwined with his, each one a thread adding to a rich fabric of shared history that wrapped around him like warmth in winter's nightfall. Elliot found himself not just listening, but speaking memories he carried within, voices mingling between them as they wove narratives where love and loss danced hand in hand under the watchful gaze of constellations unseen by any before his time, of shared heritage that stretched back to civilizations now lost to dust. The moon climbed higher into its nightly arc, casting a silver path over their feet as they strolled along ancient stones, whispering promises and pledges forged in the fire of ages past. Words, like sparks jumping from lips speaking truth, found new life, echoed around the Mac chorus, joining Aria's strings with Lyra's voice to form an anthem that would guide Elliot through his own personal odyssey. With every tale, shadows grew longer and stories deeper, as the world of night wrapped its cloak tighter about their joined spirits, a bond formed not just between hearts but across time itself, a testament to enduring tales, surviving in whispers, until this very eve when they found themselves under stars that had witnessed histories unfold. As hours melted into minutes and the world seemed held still by magic, Elliot felt his own story growing clearer. Words he once thought lost now bloomed like night-blooming flowers before him, her narrative reborn from shared memories of others whose lives echoed within himself as if they were kin. His laughter mingled with theirs in the cool air that held secrets and songs, a symphony for one who was finding his place amongst these voices now calling to him through time's veil or beacon, shining brighter by every word spoken under night and watchful eye. The breeze turned cold as first light hinted at the edge of horizon. Tendrils of morning mist rose softly, cradling their forms against a canvas painted with hues of dawn that seemed to whisper promises of sunrises yet unseen or gentle farewell from night's embrace. And then there was silence save for Aria's lute and Lyra's voice as they continued weaving tales into the fabric of now, their journey through layers upon history folded within themselves, a collective memory that shaped them even in ways unseen to the eye. But as Elliot listened to Aria's lute and Lyra's voice carry on into the gentle embrace of dawn, he felt a warmth spread through his being that had nothing to do with morning dew or sunlight filtering between clouds. It was as if all their shared histories and those they were about to encounter together once more in this very moment had woven themselves around him like threads binding cloth into fabric. The stories, the laughter and tears of generations before them seemed not just tales from a time gone by, but rather reflections of his own soul's messiah. Pieces that had always been missing now found their way home to rest beside others, long thought lost in shadowed corners or locked away within dusty tomes. He was no longer merely an observer at the crossroads where night's secrets and daybreak whisperings met became a part of it all, as integral to this communal tapestry woven through time's loom as any thread in its creation. His laughter joined Aria's with genuine mirth that had no place for mockery. His voice harmonized effortlessly with Lyra's melodic storytelling, her chorus of resonant timbre echoing off ancient stones and reverberating within the heartbeat pulse shared by all living things. In this sacred space they delved deeper into their personal histories, as if retracing footsteps on a path well worn but forgotten for years, unimaginable to one such as Elliot just moments before his awakening a realization that history was not merely something observed and recorded by the outsider's eye, nor solely experienced through cold fact. It lived within each person's own story. It breathed in shared memories like air into lungs long stilled to silent reveries while resting beneath a sky of unblemished stars. The cool morning mist rose softly around the mal-living veil between the world that was and one which would now be, as they stepped forward with tentative but assured strides upon stones worn smooth by countless predecessors whose presence still lingered in echoes through time's expanse. They passed ancient trees, whispering secrets to those who could hear their rustling leaves. The air carried scents of blooming flowers and earth, a perfume that spoke volumes without utter answer, reminding Elliot now more than ever just how deeply interconnected life truly was with its history. Together they wandered through cobbled streets where once bustling markets lay silent. The air seemed to hum as if holding on for one last time before yielding to sunlight's inevitable rise, promising new tales yet untold, but already etched within their shared consciousness. They found themselves standing at a quaint plaza, where fountains danced like sprites beneath daybreak's touch, or mosaic of memories playing out before them as if the very stones were alive with stories penned in water and light, each droplet an ode to those who had come before. Elliot felt his spirit intertwine ever more firmly within this communal journey through time's intricate labyrinth. Zero right was not merely walking upon paths tread by history, but strolling hand in hand with it, heart in sync with the very beats of life that had pulsed along these routes eons before his birth and would continue to do so long after. And then there came a pause. An unspoken understanding passed between Elliot, Aria's lute strings still warm from fingertips' touch, Lyra's voice quiet as the last note of daybreak melody hung suspended in time, or collective memory that shaped them even beyond what eyes could see. It was a shared knowingness born not just from stories and songs, but also silent kinship with every soul whose footprint had ever graced these ancient stones, imparting wisdom through the language of history's embrace rather than words alone. As they continued to weave tales into this fabric stretched across centuries, or living document that bore witness to humanity's enduring saga, their laughter and songs became a part of something transcendent, an echo in eternity where all histories converged within the heartbeats shared under night's watchful eye. And with every step forward taken together upon this sacred journey through time, or pilgrimage back to beginnings, even as they ventured towards horizons yet unseen, Elliot knew he had found not just a place among these voices, but also his own story resurrected, reborn under the banner of shared humanity. The day Elliot found himself in a place where time seemed to weave itself into an intricate tapestry of echoes, each thread representing lives and tales as ancient as they were profoundly moving. As he stood there with Aria at his sight of fingers light upon the lute strings that had summoned forth such harmonies since before their meeting in Lyra beside them, her voice like a gentle breeze carrying whispers of yore and yet to be. They realized this was not merely a journey through lands but across epochs, through verdant forests where druids once communed with spirits, or along the cobbled streets that echoed merchants haggling in tongues long silenced by time. Their senses were awash in history's embrace. The trees bore witness to lovers and revolutionaries alike. They had sighed and wept within them, dreamt beneath boughs now gnarled with age, yet still reaching for the sky's comforting warmth, a constant presence unyielded by seasons or centuries of change. Upon a hill that overlooked an ancient battlefield, where once blood had mingled with rain and stone bore scars from cannon fire, Elliot felt history pulsate beneath his feet as if the very ground thrummed in remembrance or sombre rhythm of life's fragility. Aria plucked a melody that seemed to cradle sorrow, while Lyra's voice rose and fell like waves against cliffs. Their music became an offering at history's altar, honoring the past as they sought its wisdom for present paths forward. Amidst ruins where temples once stood tall with pride, no only whispers of worship lingered in cracks between stones. Here Elliot uncovered a relic so delicate that to touch it was almost an affront. Yet he felt compelled by forces beyond his grasp or understanding. A simple locket lay buried beneath fallen masonry and overgrown roots, or talisman once belonging to someone who had cherished their love as deeply as Elliot now did the stories of this shared humanity, each imbued with a longing for connection that transcended time itself. As dusk approached on what would have been an ordinary day in any other era, it became clear that under night's canopier constellation-shaped tapestry held the sky aloft, as if celebrating their odyssey back to beginnings while simultaneously reaching out toward horizons unseen. The stars themselves seemed like distant ancestors, peering down upon them with eyes full of stories yet told, and listening intently for voices that sought not only knowledge but kinship in the tapestry. They had become a part of pilgrimage back to where old journeys end, while always finding new paths forward. Elliot knew then he was no longer traversing mere landscapes or wandering through historical epochs as isolated travelers. These experiences were threads of his own becoming, entwined with the lives and spirits that had come before him, or continuum where past pulses fed into present's flow. And so they ventured forth, onward under night's watchful eye, their laughter intertwining like braid strands in history itself, each step a beat within humanity's eternal heart, as the echo of shared histories and futures merged with those whispered around them by ancient stones that had borne witness to it all. As Elliot looked back on what he knew now, his story was not just one written in solitude, but forged from a communion where every soul's resonance shaped the chorus of humanity's song or symphony, played across time with no beginning and end save within each heartbeat shared, with Aria beside him holding their instruments that breathed melodies into eternity. Lyra, her voice a bridge between worlds seen and unseen. Together they wove through the very fabric of history itself, a living document stretched across centuries where every soul's echo became part of something transcendent. In this sacred journey that weaved backward to origins even as it led forward, Elliot discovered his own story resurrected and reborn under shared humanity's banner. Not just a place among these voices, but also within the very essence where all histories converged, or pilgrimage through time's labyrinth that brought him to this moment of awakening, as he embraced his role in history with hands joined and hearts open. And so they continued onward, their laughter a part of something eternal. The day had become night as night embraced their world, Elliot and his companion Saria with her ethereal flute-playing notes that danced through time itself, Lyra, whose voice seemed to weave between realms as easily as threads in a loom set upon the ancient stone benches under starlight. They had begun this sacred journey on separate paths, but were now bound by shared experiences and revelations deep within their souls. Synchrony that transcended temporal bounds, much like intertwined routes beneath an ageless forest floor. Their laughter echoed among the ruins of civilizations lost to time-lapse, that felt as natural as breathing in a world without borders or endings, where every heartbeat resonated with another's across generations and eons, their voices blending into humanity's eternal song. Elliot found his spirit interwoven within the fabric of this grand tapestry. Each thread was an individual life like his own, molding together to form patterns that told stories older than memory itself. And as he looked upon Aria and Lyra, A realization dawned on him with the certainty born from ages past. They were not just bearers of instruments but custodians of legacy. Their melodies an unending echo in time's grand halls where histories mingled like long-lost friends reunited. It was here, beneath a canvas woven by countless stars and the soft hum of eternal song, that Eliot understood his purpose had become not just a traveller, but a guardian at history's gates. He could see its beauty in decay as much as marvelling splendour. Aria's flute seemed to summon wind spirits from forgotten ages, while Lyra sang of futures yet unwritten, and Eliot felt their harmonies guide him through the labyrinthine paths where past, present, and future coalesced like streams converging into an infinite river that flowed beneath them. In this sacred nighttime pilgrimage to origins, even as they travelled forward in time's endless spiral, Eliot discovered a shared humanity or kinship with souls who had come before and would follow after him. The echoes of their laughter became part of something eternal. They wandered through halls where shadows danced to melodies that spanned lifetimes, past frescoes depicting scenes both grimly familiar and fantastically alien, where each brushstroke was a testament to the ceaseless march of human endeavour. Eliot's heart swelled with pride for his ancestors whose stories lived on in these echoes. Their struggles, triumphs, loves, losses etched into every stone and whispered by breezes through crumbling archways as if each gust carried the breath of ages past. Their journey had led them to this moment or place where time was a river with no banks nor end. It flowed freely around Aria's flute, Lyra's voice, and Eliot himself, who stood now not just at an intersection but within its very heart. Here he understood that his story did indeed belong in the annals of history as much as any other's. His experience is woven into a living document, stretching across centuries, where every soul's echo became part of something transcendent, creating melodies with Aria and Lyra to fill eternity's expanse. As they continued onward beneath the cloak of night that had descended upon their world like a benediction, their laughter joining in chorus alongside those shared by countless other travellers who, too, sought communion with history's whispering stones and living legacies. Eliot felt his spirit intertwine ever closer to the essence of all that had been. And as they looked up from their benches where night held sway, Eliot saw for a brief moment in Aria's eyes not just kindred spirits, but reflections of history's past. He found there in Lyra's visage an unspoken promise to futures yet born, or bridge between what was and the infinite possibilities that awaited. They knew then, beneath those watchful constellations whose light had seen civilizations rise and fall like tides upon ancient shores, they were but players on a stage grander than themselves, their individual tales not solitary scripts inked onto blank pages of time's unending book, but rather interludes within the collective symphony that was humanity's enduring narrative. As Eliot took Aria and Lyra by her hand, they stood together upon this sacred stone bench where once he had, in that hallowed moment when Eliot took Aria and Lyra by her hand under a blanket of stars studded across the night sky, he sensed an overwhelming surge within him, a rush to preserve this fleeting connection between souls amidst time's relentless march. And so they remained on that sacred stone bench where once only solitude had held court, until Eliot whispered a wish into the night's embrace, an entreaty for their bond and journey never to be forgotten by history nor lost in its vast chronicles of human endeavour. As dawn approached with stealthy grace upon that sleeping world, they inhabited a world where every soul's echo became part of something transcendent. Eliot, Aria, and Lyra found themselves at the cusp between night's end and daybreak's promise, in a place untouched by time. Here lay an ancient library carved from living stones, that pulsed with wisdom amassed through ages past. Its corridors bore no dust of neglect, but were instead adorned with tones eternally aglow, their pages whispering secrets not yet spoken to the ears of modern men and women. Eliot reached out hesitantly toward a grand doorway that seemed less like an entrance than a gateway into understanding itself, an invitation from history's silent custodians. As he stepped through with Aria beside him, they were welcomed by shelves of books whose spines bore titles in languages lost to the world beyond this threshold. Each tome was bound not just as parchment and leather, but also souls that had sought wisdom within their pages across countless generations. Amidst rows upon rows, Aria's fingers traced lines of text from a volume penned by an unknown hand, or history written during the height of empires long crumbled to dust beneath relentless tides of change and conquest. She read aloud passages that spoke of love enduring beyond kings, reigns, wars-bittered sieges, and societies entwined in cycles as eternal as mountains rising from primordial chaos, only for them all to succumb to the earth once more, a reflection mirroring their own transient existence against humanity's grand backdrop. Lyra soon found herself drawn not just by curiosity, but a resonant connection with tales of explorers and scholars who had pondered these same stones, questioned stars as old as time itself, and sought to understand the tapestry woven from threads invisible yet omnipresent throughout human experience. She felt her spirit dance alongside Thyrser's shared journey through histories untold, where every person's story was a note within an opus played by ancestors whose echoes now reached out across time's expanse to touch the present with gentle hands of memory and longing. Eliot, Iria, and Lyra wandered deeper into this realm untouched beyond their own rare place, where every soul's whisper was captured within these halls that knew not silence but hummed a constant chorus resonating through the ages like an echo in canyons of marble. They stood upon paths paved by countless feet who had come before them, each step imprinted into stone as permanent testament to their passage or legacy they could honor and cherish even for this brief time within these venerable walls, where history breathed its ancient song through every crevice of the architecture. In a chamber hidden by shadow yet alight with lanterns casting warm golden hues, Eliot encountered an old woman sitting upon her own timeless bench, her solitary figure whose eyes spoke volumes as she looked over at him and his companions. Her presence commanded respect, not born of age, but wisdom gleaned from a life spent in the company of history's silent witnesses. With gentle kindness, Eliot offered gratitude for this meeting, knowing that such encounters were rare jewels amidst their shared pilgrimage through time's corridors. They spoke as old friends would of journeys taken and lessons learned from the past's rich tapestry. As daylight began to peek timidly over distant hills, Eliot felt an unspoken understanding that this sacred library was a sanctuary where time held no dominion. Here he could be both student of bygone eras and guardian for those echoes yet unsung, an eternal bridge spanning the chasm between epochs. And it became clear to him, as much about preserving these tales within his own heart now that they would continue onwards into a world beyond this stone-bound havens, as Eliot stood in a room that felt like it belonged to another century, altoed throne filled with relics of ancient knowledge and wisdom, he could not help but feel an overwhelming sense of connection, as if this sacred library had chosen him for its guardianship across time. In his hand was the very volume on which they'd spent hours earlier that day, a leather-bound manuscript detailing mythical histories long thought to be mere fables, now revealed through Eliot's meticulous translation efforts as credible threads woven into humanity's grand tapestry. The old woman had smiled at his revelations with the kind of knowing that transcended generations. Her eyes glinted like twin lanterns in a sea of shadows, illuminating truths Eliot felt were as much about him as they were for others to learn from. She watched them move through the library's labyrinthine passageways, a place where each book was not just paper and ink but soul-stirring experiences that whispered secrets of lives lived, loves lost, empires risen and fallen. As Eliot settled back into his bench for respite amongst the tomes he so cherished, a soft rustle drew his attention to an adjacent shelf wherein lay volumes untouched by time's relentless marchbooks, whose tales were eager yet fearful of being heard again in this modern era. Taking out one such book on parchment that smelled like old earth and timber, Eliot traced his fingertips over the delicate script as he read aloud a passage about an ancient civilization where people communicated through color, language of pigments so vibrant they seemed alive. The story danced in hues upon the air before him. It was like experiencing history not just with his mind, but touching its soul directly to Eliot's heartbeat. It wasn't long until he heard a gentle rustle that made him look up. The old woman had returned and sat down beside him on her time-worn bench of polished oak and embossed leather, the very same in which she spent countless hours sharing stories with those few who sought to hear them. Your journey is not merely through these pages, but into every soul that has lived it, Eliot whispered as he closed his book, feeling a kinship across time forged by shared human experiences like love and loss. Tales of valor in the face of despair echoing within him much like they did back then. The old woman nodded slowly, her gaze not leaving their joined hands. As silence was fuller than words could ever be, as it filled with unspoken understanding that Eliot's guardianship would extend beyond these ancient halls into the future unknown he must one day face himself, Until then, his present lay in every story of yore. As twilight began to embrace them like an old friend's blanket on a chilly evening walk through history itself, Eliot decided that when it was time for him and others from their pilgrimage to leave the library's sacred confines behind one lasting night full of shared memories, he took her hand in his own once more as they ambled between book-laden aisles lined with spines reflecting histories both grandiose and intimate, a tapestry where threads were lives lived, dreams nurtured under the watchful eyes of stars long since set. "Eliot," she said quietly as they approached her bench once more amidst an orchestra of whispered tales unravelled by their fellow-travellers in a crescendo that rose and fell like ocean tides, "the time has come for you to pass the torch." Her voice was soft but steady against his heartbeat. Eliot looked into her icer mirror reflecting countless sunsets they had witnessed together through windows of times gone by. He saw himself in them as one would see a reflection on still waters, unchangeable yet always evolving with each gentle ripple that travelled across the surface. "I understand," Eliot replied, and felt his voice quiver slightly from their shared vulnerability was here between these ancient stones, where they had both found strength in stories old as time itself. He knew now it would be there too for those who followed after them into tomorrow's promise-laden horizon. As the night whispered secrets to him through every book and conversation heard within this hallowed hall of echoes where silence was a language spoken with reverence between kindred spirits that sought solace in stories as much about themselves, as Eliot took another seat, his gaze drifting skyward as he contemplated her words. "The torch has been passed." The phrase echoed within him, resonating like chimes in a gentle breeze, reminding Eliot that it was indeed the hour to bid farewell. As they settled under an umbrella of leaves on this particular afternoon, which held its breath before dusk with anticipation for tales yet untold, Nora spoke softly about their journey together and how intertwined were her heartbeat with every story told beneath the old oak tree that had watched over them. She confessed a yearning to preserve these narratives not only within books, but in the very air of this hallowed ground they frequented, library con sanctuary, where their souls found refuge and echoed through ages past, presenting comforts as timeless companions against life's ephemeral trials. "My dear Eliot," Nora sighed into his ear while her fingers played with a fallen leaf that had journeyed from afar to rest beside him, "I want the essence of this place and our shared memories here immortalized." Her voice quivered not just within himself, but also in their intertwined hands. Eliot found solace knowing his friend's wish. It was a legacy they could entrust, her testament to lives once lived, dreams nurtured under the watchful eyes of stars long since set, and tales unspun at every turn this ancient library provided. Eliot reached out with gentle assurance as he nodded in affirmation that their story would continue beyond them, both a chapter they had to relinquish but could always revisit through the stories left behind for others like him and future seekers of solace. Nora's eyes sparkled beneath her lashes. She understood his silent acknowledgment, as though it were spoken aloud with every beat of their shared heart, or promise that despite parting ways in this corporeal world, they remained forever connected through the threads woven between them during some kissed afternoons and starlit nights spent under canopies. As twilight approached its zenith, casting a warm glow upon their faces that spoke of countless shared evenings in this very park, Eliot leaned closer to Nora's shoulder, as if afraid the words might escape him before they became permanently etched within her heart and soul. It was here between these ancient stones where strength had been found, her bastion against life's relentless tides of change that could erode even the most steadfast resolve when faced alone, but always felt more like a homecoming amidst kindred spirits, as they often discovered themselves within one another's narratives. And so Eliot murmured with conviction and an undercurrent of melancholy for their impending departure from this place that had become the sacred crucible where life's essence was captured in fleeting moments between two souls, "I believe your wish will find safe harbor here." His words were a bridge to tomorrow, or passageway into legacy and memory. Eliot's thoughts turned to their last encounter at this very bench. The sunset had begun its descent as they shared one final conversation about life after them, imparting advice like seeds planted in fertile soil of wisdom that would bloom long past our time, towed for a gentle offering for Nora and all who sought refuge within these walls where stories lived on. Eliot's hand found the worn grooves he had traced earlier with his fingertips, as if to reassure himself amidst uncertainty of future encounters in this park that felt like a part of him, or chapter closing but never truly ending for those who sought solace within its embrace. As darkness began to wrap the world around them and stars above mirrored reflections on Nora's face, Elliot realized they would soon find themselves strangers once more in this realm where time flowed like water. Through Fingerset was a cycle of renewal that held no sorrow for him, as he knew it meant new beginnings for others. Goodbye to our shared sun. As Elliot stood there on this park bench once more after many months had woven themselves into seasons and memories, he felt a familiar sense of peace settle over his solar calm that always found its way back to him when time seemed an unrelenting foe. The gentle rustling of leaves spoke in whispers, as if the trees were eager listeners for another tale they could carry forward into history itself. Nora's presence had become a fading echo, her laughter and warmth now just memories that colored Elliot's thoughts with hues he thought would never leave him again. Yet tonight felt different. The air was crisp but not biting cold like it used to when they were towed through it, promised renewal in its subtle embrace, as if recognizing their shared history and acknowledging his solitude by wrapping Elliot's spirit with a blanket of comfort before night could fully claim him. They had always found themselves here, where the park was not just an escape from life, but seemed to be part of them both, where secrets were whispered amongst friends who would outlive their shared stories, and wisdom they hoped might echo through generations. The bench that bore witness to countless goodbyes now held a final farewell for Elliot, imbued with the essence he had so lovingly captured in Nora's presence. His words were seeds sown into her heart as surely as she would one day plant them anew elsewhere. As night crept closer and veiled stars began to dot the sky's canvas above him, Elliot traced his fingers over each letter of their last name inscribed on a plaque next to where they had sat towed through, a testament not only to this place but also to time's unyielding march. He realized that every moment spent with Nora was like the seasons themselves, sometimes vibrant and full, at other times muted by life's inexorable flow. He smiled faintly as he remembered their last conversation about how they would continue through each season of existence, and how to navigate love when it had become an echo rather than a presence felt daily or even weekly. That was the paradox of time, and Elliot had come to understand its rhythm now. He sighed softly, allowing himself one more memory before he let go for good this evening. Nora's eyes were no longer there in front of him as they looked out over the familiar park pathways that felt like home, a sanctuary where their souls had danced together amidst life's ebb and flow without judgment or expectation, leaving only love behind when he left her for good. Her spirit seemed to wrap itself around his shoulders with a tender caress, as if saying farewell was not an end, but another beginning in its own right, a promise of continuity even within separation's painful embrace. The park had always been more than trees and paths. It held stories, legacies that were passed down like heirlooms through the ages, a place where Elliot felt anchored to something greater than himself, as if by magic, an invisible thread connecting him not just with Nora, but with all who sought respite in these enchanted grounds. Here they had shared their dreams and fears alike. Here was he now bidding goodbye, closing one chapter of his life's book, whilst the next awaited its eager scribe to pen it in each leaf, a whisper from history for those who would listen long after Elliot's own story ended. As darkness finally consumed all traces of light and sound with silent certainty that cloaked him in solitude, he felt Nora's presence one last time before she too was swallowed by the night, just as surely as his voice had faded into silence here amongst these whispering trees, her quiet acknowledgment between two souls who knew they would find themselves strangers once more. And Elliot found comfort in that finality, for he sensed it meant a new beginning not only for himself, but also promised the rebirth of love and connection somewhere out there beyond this sacred space where history had been made, time and again her cycle as unending yet always renewing like life itself underneath their feet. With heartbeats fading to silence, Elliot stepped away from the bench that bore witness to a story now concluded but destined for eternal preservation within these hallowed grounds where love transcended timer, legacy of memory and hope intertwined like roots beneath an ancient tree's protective bough. He looked up one last time, seeing not just stars above him but also their reflections in the depths of his own eyes, as if he was still here with Nora even while she had departed to reel, as Elliot stood alone on that very same bench where time seemed to pause and echo with their shared love's whispers. He allowed himself a final moment of solitude before stepping into another chapter, unwritten or narrative yet emerging from the depths just as surely as his heart had found its own rhythm in Nora's embrace. The night enveloped him tenderly, an ancient blanket woven with threads, softer than silk, ensuring that even after her departure to realms beyond reach, their connection would continue undiminished and ever present like a melody hummed beneath the surface of his consciousness, or timeless lullaby only they could hear. The trees around him stood as sentinels in this sacred grove where history had unfolded within these very moments shared between two souls, their laughter still echoing through rustling leaves that danced to an unheard tune of love's eternal song. Elliot traced the initials he and Nora once carved into a trunk or testament, not just in wood, but also within his own heart. Though they had been erased by time, their memory lingered as steadfastly as these enduring oaks that cradled him now under an expansive celeste zerolity. He breathed deeply of the cool night air, and closed his eyes to let the sensation wash over him, a refreshing baptism, akin to standing at this bench just after sunset, when their day together had reached its zenith, now waning into dusk as surely as Elliot's own voice faded from her ears. The gentle breeze carried the faint scent of blooming jasmine and wildflowers that adorn these hallowed grounds, where every season painted a different shade in this living tapestry, each thread representing moments sewn with delicate fingers by fate itself, threads Elliot knew he could never unravel. Nora had always been his compass through life's tumultuous sea, and now that she was gone to join the infinite stars above him as if ascending into a celestial abode, her essence would continue guiding wherever their intertwined paths might have led. Paths Elliot knew were paved with love's imprint on his very being. Her spirit remained inseparable from his own. They had become one within this sacred space where the past and future melded into a single point of existence, much like how each night sky blends seamlessly until dawn breaks to claim it ane'er, cycle as infinite yet ever renewing as their shared dreams beneath these ancient branches. Elliot's heart felt lightened by the knowledge that Nora's love transcended this physical plane, and within him bloomed a fresh bud of hope for future connections, ones wherein he might meet another soul whose essence would resonate so deeply with his own, Someone who could listen to his silent songs as eagerly as she had. He was ready now to embrace the solitude that Nora's absence left in its wake, understanding well enough from their time together that separation did not signify an end, but rather a doorway to other beginnings waiting just beyond life's threshold, or promise of love yet unexplored and stories still being told. As the night deepened around him like velvet draped over shoulders, Elliot allowed himself one last glance upward toward the heavens, where countless stars shone with an intensity that mirrored his own heartbeat's quiet drum, a reminder of Nora's spirit now dancing among them. He felt her presence not just in memories, but as a current flowing through him, connecting past and present into one continuous stream of life, where love lived on unimpeded by the finality he once believed would end it all. He stepped away from the bench with newfound reverence for their time-told sacred journey that had gifted Elliot an awareness of his own heart's capacity to feel, remember, and cherish deeply, even when she was no longer beside him physically, but ever present in spirit's embrace. The quiet murmurs of the wind through leaves seemed now akin to whispering voices from afar, a comfort that Nora had loved as he did his own life with every breath taken, leaving behind her essence not just within this grove or Elliot's heart, but also in all those who would come after and remember their shared love under these boughs. The ancient trees rustled a gentle applause, a standing ovation for the tale they had witnessed between two souls whose union promised to be inscribed into legend. Becoming law whispered on, Elliot stood silently in the whispering grove, where every leaf seemed to murmur tales only he could hear, a symphony composed for him alone. It was here, under a sky blushing with twilight's palette as stars began their nightly vigil above, that Elliot sought solace, and found it not in the embrace of Nora, but within himself amidst her absence. The grove held secrets whispered by generations before him, or sacred ground, where two hearts had once beat beneath its boughs as one unified entity. Now he walked alone, yet a profound connection to his beloved lingered in the hush of night air that carried her essence on invisible wings through time and space within this ancient haven. It was not just Nora's spirit Elliot felt, but also an echo of their shared laughter. It resonated like chimes when a gentle breeze passed, imbuing him with the warmth she had always brought to his life, for comfort that even in her physical absence from this world they continued to exist together. Elliot traced faded initials carved into an aged oak trunk beside which he first confessed love beneath Nora's watchful gaze, as if each ladder was a stepping stone leading him back through the corridor of time where memories played like shadows cast by dappling light. The grove seemed to sigh with contentment at his presence and whispered an invitation for Elliot's return in seasons yet unseen, promising that he would find himself within its embrace again with or without her beside him. And so on nights like this one, when the air felt charged with memory and possibility, Elliot knew it was not solely Nora who had left a legacy here, but also their love story interwoven into nature's own narrative tapestry. Tonight he could almost hear her voice in his ear, a soft cadence that reminded him of how she loved the rustle of leaves, as if they were words spoken just for them, an intimate secret between two lovers who found solace and companionship within these very trees. Foliage. Her laughter was a melody carried by zephyrs through branches, swaying in rhythm to his heartbeat. Her eyes sparkled with the same light as starlight filtering down from constellations far above, illuminating truths unspoken but deeply felt and understood between them alone. Elliot closed his fingers over an engraved locket that once contained a lock of Nora's hair, a tangible whisper to her soul. Spirits still danced among the leaves where he had shared many such intimate moments with her, each memory tendered like petals falling from blossoms touched by their own hands. The grove was an altar for love undiminished. Elliot felt as if it recognized him even when his heart ached to feel its depths once more without Nora beside him, or feeling that the ancient trees stood testament to, echoing back in rustling applause of wood and leaf. He found himself drawn towards a secluded pond where reflections held not just images but fragments of moments frozen within ripples disturbed only by his touch or Nora's gentle caress or dance they had known well, each movement leaving imprints on the water as indelible memories upon their hearts. In its stillness he whispered her name into mist rising from warmth of evening sunlight that bathed them in gold and amber. It was here she would have waited for him when his feet sought this very earth, to return hers again, a ritual they had practiced with an unspoken understanding born only between two souls. The grove's air held the scent of rain yet to fall, promising a renewal that Elliot felt within himself as he remembered her infectious optimism, which seemed never-ending even when darker clouds gathered on life's horizon, a promise etched into his own spirit by their shared laughter and love. It was here in this sacred place of remembrance, where the whispers became a chorus, singing to him, that he carried Nora within as much today as ever before, each rustling leaf a note crafted from her essence, a symphony played on wind instruments tuned by time itself for his solace and comfort. As Elliot stood beneath boughs heavy with history's weight, the grove seemed to fold inward around him like a protective embrace, as Elliot's breath slowed and his heartbeat echoed in a rhythm with the falling night leaves. He found himself wrapped not just by nature's arms, but also by an overwhelming sense of peace that seemed to have been waiting for him here all along. The grove had always held secrets. Now it revealed its own kind, secrets whispered in a language made up of sighs and rustling leaves, carrying the weight of lost time within their folds. Tonight was different as Elliot stood underneath Zero, the canopy, where moonlight danced through branches to create patterns on his pathway back home. He knew it had been Nephi's place that held a mirror not just reflecting Nora's image, but the essence of their connection, which he felt pulsing in every drop of dew and shivered leaf against bark, as if they too mourned her absence with him. As night deepened its hold on daylight, Elliot allowed himself to be drawn into a trance wherein time seemed irrelevant, or place outside the relentless march forward that had left so many lives in disarray after Nora's sudden departure from this world of theirs back when she was but 28 years old. In his solitude, Elliot reached for something tangible to hold on to. A stone smoothed by water's caress over countless days seemed like an appropriate choice, or touchstone, in more ways than one. As he held it within the warmth of his palm and felt its cool weight pressed against his skin, memories unbidden flooded back at him. Shared sunsets on this very spot, whispered dreams that took flight with every gentle breeze through these trees, where they had found a haven from reality's harsh climes. He remembered their laughter echoing off the canopy above them like melodies of joy amid life's dissonant chords. How evenings spent here felt timeless, as if each day were an eternity captured in youthful hearts and hopeful spirits that never aged beyond these sacred bounds. Nora had always sought this grove to find Selasto sit beneath its ancient boughs, with Elliot after long days of labor or love's endless pursuit. She found it here, as he did now once more in the quiet embrace meant for him and her alone by fate's design. Their ritual had been simple yet profounder touch upon each other when lips met under this canopy, a whisper of names into cooling air that carried their love beyond reach of daylight's boundary. Here was where he would stand waiting for the evening to bring her back, if only in dream. And though she never returned from those untimely shadows drawn over life's horizontal form forever outstretched across the sacred ground as an eternal imprint upon nature itself, Elliot found that their presence here was not just a memory, but also his salvation and solace. For when he closed his eyes to the night sky's endless sea of stars above him or felt her touch beneath these boughs before returning back into himself, it was as if Nora's essence lived on within this grove. Elliot could almost hear echoes of their past love-filled conversations carried by whispers in the wind, laughter that seemed to ripple through leaves and blossoms alike, each rustling sound a stanza from her favorite poem about life's ephemeral nature, a reminder not just of loss, but also hope. As he looked upon this grove's timeless sentinels, whose roots intertwined like the strands woven into their shared history, Elliot felt himself growing stronger day by day, as if her spirit had instilled resilience within him to face life's trials anew without Nora beside him. Sometimes he imagined that she might still be here within this sacred grove and beyond, a presence not diminished but transformed through time into something even more ethereal, for their love lived on in every leafy green blade or dappled sunlight caught within the delicate webs of dew. When he held his breath to let it sink deeper still, the chill air seemed thick with her essence, and just as surely that she would return to him again, if only by dream, forging a path through sorrow's shadow back into love's golden light, where they once had lived untouched in the warmth of each other. And so Elliot stood beneath this bower, laden with stories told not merely on paper or canvas, but upon every living thing within its reach or story, that now included his own, as Elliot stood beneath this living archway of ancient oaks and whispering willows, or testament to time itself. He felt a peculiar sense of solitude enveloped by companionship with nature's own embrace. The gentle rustling leaves became his soundtrack for the night's journey through memories woven into thoughts that now only danced on breezes and beams filtering through green canopies overhead. He noticed, as he often did when alone under this grand arboreal dome, a certain harmony between loss and renewal. His sorrow had seeped deeply not just within him, but also around him in the cool night air that seemed to carry whispers of Nora's laughter intermingled with shadows cast by her absence. It was here, among these enduring sentines with their gnarled roots and branches reaching out like supplicants for connection across lifetimes perhaps, that he felt a stirring within him, an impulse to create something new from the fragments of his heartache. In silence, punctuated by owls' hoots, Elliot began sketching in worn leather-bound journal pages that lay on the ground beside where Nora had found her favorite spot years ago, bench now overgrown with ivy and moss. The characters he drew were not herself, but echoes of who she represented. Each stroke was a tender homage to their shared moments, which once filled his days with colors more vibrant than the hues in this very glade, from sunset golds that had caught her laughter's ringing tones on warm summer evenings until twilight's last gleam, and amber-tinted autumn afternoons when they would sit side by side, painting their dreams across the sky with falling leaves. With each image he completed ton or mosaic of Nora's essence that grew more intricate upon his page after page, as if her spirit guided every line and shade within this bookish tapestry. Elliot felt a gradual release from grief's grip. In the quietude, he allowed himself to be carried back through time by scents of pine needles mingled with remnants of their own perfume that seemed as though it had never left her skin, or hauntingly familiar blend in this sacred grove where they once found refuge from life's tempests together. As the night deepened and the first light of dawn began to tease its way through treetops, Elliot realized he was no longer alone. Rather than succumbing entirely to despair or lamentation for her lost touch in his world, the very sensations that had consumed him before now dissipated like mist under a new sun. He understood without words that their love's legacy lived on through this refuge, as he found himself no longer clutching at the phantoms of what once was, but reaching forward to paint unseen futures with colors born from grief's palette and hope's brush in equal measure. This sacred grove had become his haven where dreams blossomed amidst sorrow, a place not just for memories or mourning, but also as the cradle of new beginnings that only he could now nurture with tender hands, or testament to love's ever-enduring power. In this realm between waking and slumbering thoughts, Elliot knew when morning came they would part once more under different skies. Yet here, in the heartbeat of nature's sanctum, he felt a steadfast promise that their shared story need not end with Nora's departure from his life. With every creaky step towards home, and each sigh whispered to the wind, Elliot promised himself this refuge will always be their constant in an ever-changing world where echoes of yesterday could still find a voice today through him alone, and he realized that within these groves' embrace his own story was just beginning. And so as night surrendered its hold, Elliot walked away with the confidence to carry forward from this place not without her, but in full bloom for their love's continued journey onward through seasons yet unseen and paths not taken, for within him now surged a new-found strength, born of ancient oaks standing tall around them. He knew that whatever lay ahead, each step was guided by the gentle hand of Nora's spirit intertwined with his own. As Dorrance enveloped their beloved grove in hues as warm and inviting as a lover's lullaby to soothe all who would hear it, Elliot felt at peace within himself as it was late afternoon when Elliot reached out, as if in one last farewell gesture before stepping into his own journey again. The grove seemed to hold its breath along with him, and then resumed the whisper of leaves that always accompanied twilight's approacher, symphony only he truly understood now. The next daybreak brought a fresh promise as Elliot, hand in leaf-strewn basket, walked towards his old study where countless memories were entwined with Nora's laughter and the rustle of her hair against sunlight streaming through tall windows, her dance he had choreographed but now performed alone. His fingers brushed over faded photograph albums as if tracing a map, guiding him back to shared moments where love was in full bloom amidst life's unpredictable seasons. Amid the sepia-tinted faces and half-remembered smiles of days past her celebration here, an evening under starlit canopies, there Elliot found solace, not just for Nora's absence, but also his presence in those memories that would forever be etched into their history's annals. The grove had been the first witness to Elliot and Nora, a silent confidante who now watched over him as he took one last look at her favorite spot under its sprawling branches before moving on without looking back. He felt an unspoken gratitude for this haven that remained his when she was not there. It would forever be their shared retreat from the world's chaos, and a reminder of what love could nurture in one's soul, even as he prepared to embark upon life's journey alone. Within these ancient oaks, Elliot felt his resolve harden like wood. Though they stood apart under different skies tonight, too soon would come the day when new footsteps echoed beneath their boughs a promise of continuance and shared paths that lay ahead but not yet trodden. He knew love's story was one to be carried forward, nurtured by memories like seeds on fertile ground. It did not end with goodbye alone, or farewell's whispering sigh as the daylight faded into twilight once more under a canopy of stars that were no stranger to his heart. Nora's laughter, her touched warmth she offered in countless small ways, would always find resonance within him, even though their physical journey had come full circle and now led them through separate worlds. As he stepped forward on homeward paths yet unseen, Elliot felt an internal peace that was as intricate and profound as the grove's own story of growth around his feet, her comforting cloak woven from twilight's last golden threads to wrap him against tomorrow's cold embrace. In solitude he sought counsel with history, for within these trees stood countless tales akin to Elliot and Nora's own. Their essence was like the water that nourished roots deep beneath dirt-laden soil, or source of life amidst law's stark reality. And though her presence no longer warmed his hands or lined up with his footsteps, he carried forth a piece of each other in every step forward, taken together and yet alone. They were intertwined like the vines that clung to ancient trunks, or bond unbroken even as seasons shifted. As night descended upon their beloved grove one final time before its transformation into dawn, Elliot felt a serenity within him he had not realized was missing until now, his heartbeat synchronized with the steady pulse of nature that echoed through this sacred space, or testament to life's enduring cycles. And as morning beckoned anew in hues reminiscent of Nora's laughter, Elliot felt a renewal within himself forged by time and experience. It was the strength born from sorrow, like sapling bowing towards sunlight after rainfall, a resilience honed under her gaze that would carry him through seasons he had yet to see. Within his chest beat an enduring promise of a love not confined by mere physical presence. As morning beckoned anew in hues reminiscent of Nora's laughter, Elliot felt a renewal within himself forged by time and experience. It was strength born from sorrow, like sapling bowing towards sunlight after rainfall, a resilience honed under her gaze that would carry him through seasons he had yet to see. With the first light casting delicate shadows among ancient trunks, Elliot took a long overdue stroll into their once familiar grove, where silence now played with time and memory like an old friend's voice echoing in empty rooms, both hauntingly present but distant simultaneously. The air was crisp as he traced the outline of each tree's gnarled roots, feeling his fingers brush against remnants of warmth that no longer came from Nora herself. Her essence seemed to live on within these very boughs and leave as their testament not only to nature's enduring cycles, but also a mirror reflecting their shared history. A soft rustle whispered through the foliage as he remembered how they would often stand here, holding hands while discussing dreams that dared them to envision futures beyond this grove. Nowhere could Elliot find such innocence in his heart, and a more reminder of a time when their love felt boundless and fearless. He paused for just a moment before continuing onward, letting the gentle cadence of leaves against bark be like soft murmurs, guiding him forward through this sacred space where life danced around them, as if to say that even in absence there was still presence, an ethereal ballet performed solely by nature itself. In his mind's eye Elliot could see Nora, her spirit embodied within the dance of light and shadow filtering between trees. She would join him now with a silent chuckle at how life persisted despite change or absence, reminding them both that endings were simply beginnings in disguise. As he navigated through familiar paths once walked together hand in hand under the watchful eye of ancient oaks and wise willows alike, Elliot couldn't help but feel a kinship with these silent sentinels. Their enduring presence seemed to offer him solace when his own heart felt like an unquiet sea seeking shore. With every step he took, each path worn by her boots beneath the canopy of leaves was imprinted within him. Their shared moments were not lost but simply transformed into a different kind of memory, a legacy forged in love and loss alike that transcended physical boundaries. Emerging from behind an aged elm, Elliot paused to gaze upon her favorite spot by the babbling brook where Nora would sketch their dreams on tiny stones. This secluded alcove of nature held more than mere pebbles and water. It was a sanctuary for whispered secrets that only they knew. Here, in solitude, Elliot allowed himself to feel her touch once again as he traced the smooth surface where she had etched their initials decades ago. Each groove became an echo of laughter shared between two souls forever intertwined despite time's relentless march forward or its cruel halting grip. He found himself standing before her favorite tree, a towering sequoia whose roots ran as deep into the earth as his own feelings for Nora had once run through him. They were like two vines that clung to ancient trunks or bond unbroken even as seasons shifted and leaves fell in endless cycles of decay before rebirth. And though her laughter was no longer a melody carried on the wind, Elliot could feel its warmth within his chest. She had taught him well how resilience shone bright like sapling bowing towards sunlight after rainfall, or strength born from sorrow that would carry them both through seasons he had yet to see. Closer inspection of the sequoia's gnarled trunk revealed carvings made by generations before, names and dates intertwined like history itself, each ring in its bark a testament to time's passage that Elliot himself would bear upon his shoulders as well. The tree stood firmly amidst this ever-evolving grove, a constant reminder of nature's ability to endure despite the ephemeral existence of humanity. It was their shared sanctuary where memories bloomed like flowers in perpetual springtime, undimmed by sunsets or joint. As Elliot continued his circuitous journey around this familiar grove, his heart heavy with absence, but somehow lighter for the presence that remained within him. Through her Elliot's fingers traced a familiar path along the bark of his arboreal confidant, as if seeking solace in its rugged embrace each time he felt disconnected from Nora's world without her laughter to brighten it all. The sequoia had been more than just an ancient sentinel among saplings. It was a repository of whispered secrets and silent witnesses, encapsulating moments lost within its rings like precious gems nestled in the heartwood's cora, living chronicle that now seemed to share Elliot's own story. As twilight embraced the forest with hues as soft as Nora's touch upon his skin, he knelt by her favorite oak and caressed its weather-worn surface lovingly. It was their ritual of connection, or silent dialogue between man and nature that spoke louder than any words they might exchange beneath the stars. It had been years since Nora's last visit here with him, but in these moments under moonlight's gentle glowing embrace Elliot found a semblance of her presence, as if she were always close enough to touch and feel just beyond his fingertips, her essence forever interwoven within the very air they breathed. Nora had taught him that even in loss there is growth, how resilience shone like sapling boughs reaching for light after a relentless storm. Her lessons were etched deeply into his soul's architecture, as unyielding and enduring as the sequoia itself. Elliot's heart ached with memories of laughter that seemed to echo through time, a melody composed in Nora's voice when she was here among these trees, an anthem now submerged beneath layers of solitude, yet never truly silenced within him, for her spirit lived on vibrantly as the lifeblood coursing through his veins. As he stood upright once more and continued to wander aimlessly amongst the grove's ancient guardians, Elliot carried with him a burden that felt both monumental in weight yet ethereally lighter, love for Nora, as profoundly rooted within him like these perennial trees. Her absence had become an integral part of his existence. It was her laughter and shared dreams among the leaves, sunlight on their intertwined fingers, that now lingered invisibly around every rustle, whispering through each creaky limber testament to life's continuity despite its ephemeral nature. The forest had always been a sanctuary for Elliot and Nora. It was where they first discovered the language of their souls beneath sprawling boughs that stretched towards heaven in defiance of gravity's pull, or shared refuge from life's relentless storms, sheltering them with its evergreen canopy. As he ambled along a hidden path unveiled by his touch alone to Nora on her birthday years ago, Elliot chuckled softly at the irony. Here in this secluded grove, where no one else tread and time seemed but an illusion, had learned that love is not bound to sight or sound nor confined within four walls. It was as much a part of him now as it ever could be, just out of reach like elusive fireflies dancing in the dusk, forever present yet untouchable beyond mortal grasping fingers and fleeting heartbeats. Inside his mind's eye lay visions that Nora had once shared with him, her tapestry woven from threads of adventures, tales spun beneath these very trees, where they would sit for hours discussing dreams as if the universe itself were their audience, a life intertwined like roots seeking water in search of sustenance. These memories flowed through Elliot's thoughts with ease now that he was alone, a constant stream whispered by breezes rustling through foliage, each gust carrying fragments of conversations where laughter and shared dreams had once echoed unabated, a symphony composed in Nora's voice as vibrant hues imbuing the air around them with warmth. Elliot paused beneath an ancient maple tree, its leaves like painted tapestries of amber, crimson, and gold that now seemed to shimmer even more radiantly against its aged bark. The sun's farewell kiss upon days and casting dancing patterns through the foliage above. In this moment, when twilight had descended into night, he felt the whisper of Nora in his soul, as if her very essence. Elliot traced his finger along an old carving etched into the tree's bark, a heart intertwined with initials that he and Nora had once declared as a testament to their love. The name and for nature seemed fitting now when she was no longer by his side. Her spirit felt just within reach, even though it danced atop wind-caressed branches, out of direct touch but always nearby. It began with the setting sun painting its final strokes across a canvas sky as Elliot found himself seated once again beneath that ancient maple tree, their favorite refuge, where countless memories had been shared and dreams woven into reality's delicate fabric. The air held remnants of their laughter, now just echoes in the hollow spaces between leaves when they brushed against one another with each rustling breeze that swept through this sacred grove. In his mind's eye Elliot saw her again, her vision as clear and comforting as any dream could offer. Nora by his side, their hands intertwined like the maple's own roots beneath them. They gazed upwards at twilight hues that bathed everything in an ethereal glow. He remembered how she would point out shooting stars to him when he needed a reminder of life's brief encounters, her laughter ringing pure and untainted like the chime of glass wind chimes dancing with each starry descent across night's expanse. The trees around them stood as silent sentinels, guardians, to their tales, or testament that stories held power long after those who told them had passed on into legend or memory's misty embrace. Elliot closed his eyes, and for a brief moment he could almost hear the symphony of Nora's voice blending with rustling leaves. Her words were like colors to him that burned brightly in joyous moments, yellows as warmth during their shared laughter, greens symbolizing growth through trials they had overcome together. As he opened his eyes beneath the maple's watchful gaze, Elliot felt a strange kinship With this tree just like them and him it sought solace in companionship. Its branches reached out to shield against stormy seasons while offering shelter within summer's embrace. The leaves shimmered now not just because of refracted light, but as if acknowledging his presence, whispering tales of old where he was once part of the living tapestry beneath their watchful boughs, with Nora beside him, her essence felt so tangible yet somehow still beyond reach in a world without her voice. With each sigh that escaped Elliot's lips as night crept closer, his heart ached for more than just her absence. It longed to reclaim the vibrancy of their shared existence, set her once again feel Nora's touch and hear her tender murmurings against a backdrop of nature's own serenade. The stars seemed brighter tonight, as though reflecting his desire, each one a beacon guiding him through morning's dark waters towards hopeful shores, where the sun still rises unobstructed and love remains undiminished by time or tragedy. He stood up slowly from beneath the maple's canopy of comfort, as Elliot felt compelled to continue seeking solace in this sacred place or pilgrimage through remembrance that soothes like a gentle stream's caress upon aching feet and tired spirit alike. The forest around him, once merely backdrop for shared adventures, with Nora's laughter echoed among the trees, as if still alive with their presence in this very moment of solitude, a paradox that both haunted Elliot and enveloped his heart like a protective shroud. He loved her not just when she was by his side, but also now, alone. A gentle breeze carried away the last remnants of daylight as night fully claimed its dominion over the sacred grove, a realm where Elliot and Nora had once found their peace within each other's embrace. Here he sought refuge from his grief under a sky that bore witness to countless such unions, now broken. The wind whispered secrets of survival through the hollow crevices between ancient bark, secrets about moving forward without her physical presence, but with love and memories as eternal companions in this journey toward healing. Elliot's heart understood that life must go on, even if painfully so. He began to walk deeper into the forest, feeling each step not just through his feet, but also within himself, for as night deepened into a velvety darkness, Elliot felt each step in this sacred grove become an offering to those who'd loved her before him. He wished upon every star for Nora, but knew all his wishes were already answered by the love they had given one another when life was abundant and full of promise. The memories weren't just reminders. Elliot understood them now as guiding lights. Each echoed laughter around a tree trunk or secret hug under an ancient canopy served as stepping stones through his journey back to himself without her beside him. The cool night air nipped at his cheeks while he walked further into the heart of nature's cathedral, its shadows stretching long and languid across fallen leaves that carpeted the forest floor like a mosaic woven from autumn's touch, alone a silent testament to life's cyclical dance. Elliot traced his fingers along these patterns as if he could feel Nora beside him, guiding them with her warmth and assurance through this intricate design etched by nature itself. Together they had once done just that during their stroll here in the sunlight's embrace. Now it was time for Elliot to continue alone. With every step he took deeper into solitude. His heart ached with a love so profound and true that even death could not sever its bond. Nora had whispered this promise upon her lips before she closed hers forever in sleep beneath these very same trees. Her sacred covenant, Elliot knew, bound him to the memory of their shared existence. And as he continued forward, his path intersected with those who came here seeking solace too. A widow whose grief-stricken sobs mingled with night air, next to an old couple exchanging stolen glances and tender words beneath moonlit blooms. Each of them carried their own silent sorrows, yet found comfort in the shared space, just as Elliot sought his. The wind seemed almost conscious itself at this hour, a gentle zephyr that curled around him like a lover's caress or an old friend with tales to tell and secrets spilled from lips long parted by fate. It carried whispers of resilience, murmuring stories of those who traversed similar paths through loss. Elliot listened intently as the night air spoke her language without words that felt somehow all too familiar on his heartstrings. "You must walk forward," rustled a voice he knew in Nora's own tone from days gone by, but now directed towards him alone. Her encouragement seemed to emanate through every leaf and twig, as if the forest itself was imbued with wisdom beyond mortal comprehension. Elliot took these words of courage into his spirit, her compass guiding him toward a horizon where pain would no longer define, but be merely an echo fading in strength against each new sun's rise. He understood that love, like the river's flow or life's own pulse beneath this very forest floor, was eternal and unending. It coursed through his veins as surely now without her physical presence beside him than it had ever done when they were towed for a current strong enough to bear them both across any stormy sea of loss that might seek their passage in Time's tide-bearing hands. Nora's spirit was a companion, an anchor within his own chest, as he walked onward through the whispered guidance and gentle caresses from those around him. As night began to relinquish its hold over this sacred grove one more time for their shared memories before it too would pass into oblivion, like all things must first glimmer of dawn promised by a distant horizon where darkness could no longer claim dominance, Elliot felt his heart swell with gratitude not just for the love he had known, but also for finding himself here in this space alone and unguarded. The thought that Nora's laughter would live on like echoes around him within these trees imparted a sense of serenity to his soul. Elliot stood still as a dewdrop clinging to morning's first green leaf, his breath mingled with mist, rising and merging like spirits of warmth in winter's chill air before he dissolved into silence once more upon the earthen floor. It was here that Nora had been laid down by time itself, her laughter lingering symphony among these whispered tales etched within ancient bark. Each ring beneath his fingertips spoke of seasons gone and yet to come, just as her essence remained ever present in the fabric of this secluded forest sanctuary they had once claimed together. He traced paths along mossy stones with gentle fingers that remembered not only touch but also heat a cheek against his own, eyes alighting upon shared glances over rippling water where dragonflies danced above untamed reeds, a sacred place now touched by the soft embrace of dappled sunlight filtering through canopy leaves. Nora had taught Elliot to find solace in nature's grand design, for within these very woods they found refuge and strength when their journey was most arduous, or testament that love could endure even as bodies wander apart under life's vast sky. As the horizon began its slow blush of daybreak over this secluded grove where once two hearts beat in unison, Elliot felt a deep-seated peace settle around him like comforting fog rolling across cold earth, a solace born from her indelible imprint upon his being. Memories surged within the hollows and valleys of his mind as he allowed himself to be enveloped by time's unrelenting march, understanding that while Nora's physical presence would retreat beyond this sanctuary like shadows at daybreak, her essence heirs with all things in life was immortal. He found his way back into the embrace of whispered wind-song and bird-song chorus, their melodies an audible memory that wove through days long past when both he and Nora had listened to these same serenades within earshot, sharing secrets with only butterflies as eavesdroppers. The rustle of leaves underfoot became like the soft pattering of her footsteps, a rhythm once shared between their souls now echoed in this solitary dance through verdant pathways where no other human tread. Sitting upon a moss-cushioned boulder, Elliot watched as dewdrops became mirrors to the sky before him. His reflection, gazing back, was haunted by absence, yet comforted by its own solitude. Their man and wife transformed into two solitary figures beneath nature's grand canopy. Her voice will always be a whisper in these woods, like leaves rustling with each new breeze that swept through the forest, her presence as tangible now to him more than ever because of all she had been for this timepiece. They called life her strength, his anchor amidst tempests and tranquility alike. Nora's laughter, once a melody intertwining with morning burkles, would continue its resonance within these very trees where their love was first sown, her joyous spirit an unending wellspring that fed the roots of his own being even as she lay quiet beneath grounding earth. The forest breathed around him her living testament to cycles and seasons he understood not just intellectually but viscerally in heartbeats echoed by sapling leaves stretching toward light, their verdancy a vibrant hue against the mosaic of autumnal foliage that had cradled his past. He felt Nora's spirit as an invisible tether linking him to this sacred grove where she loved, her memory like water running through veins and arteries, invigorating each pulse with the wisdom gleaned from shared silences under moon's watchful gazer place they had claimed not just for themselves, but as a sanctuary open only to their souls. With every step he took along these familiar trails that now bore his sole footprint, Elliot felt her guidance like whispers among trees. The forest was both maze and map laid out in contours of green where they had wandered hand in hand under starlit, skeezer testament to journeys embarked upon together. As he meandered deeper into this refuge, Elliot's heart felt lighter for each shared memory that passed beneath the boughs as if carried by zephyrs, her absence no longer a void but an endless echo resonating within his very core of love. Elliot's fingers trailed across his chest where her name once danced upon a locket pendant, a relic of their bond, now heavy with memories alone in its absence. The forest's caress still lingered on the contours of Nora's visage sketched eternally within that golden surface. Each wrinkle and smile captured during sunlit picnics by her side was as vividly real to Elliot now, if not more so in his dreamscapes. The canopy above whispered secrets carried on the winged secrets of a world before Nora's spirit had taken flight into that which lay beyond mere mortal comprehension. She would often speak such truths while they lounged under its emerald embrace, her laughter mingling with rustling leaves as if both were born from the same breath drawn through nature's own lips. With each step Elliot took along these familiar trails that now bore his sole footprint, he felt Nora's guidance like whispers among trees. Forest was neither maze nor map laid out in contours of green, but a sanctuary open only to their souls. It had once been the playground for shared silences under moon's watchful gaze. The very air seemed thick with remembrance as Elliot wandered deeper into this refuge, where his heart no longer felt alone amidst nature's grand tapestry. Her absence was not a void, but an endless echo resonating within him like the haunting melody of night birds at dusk. Elliot paused and looked around to find Nora's favorite part of this sacred grove, where sunlight filtered through just right, casting patterns that danced upon earth as if paying homage to her vibrant spirit. Or place they had claimed not for themselves alone, but a sanctuary open only between their souls. His mind wandered back across the seasons of his life with Nora intertwined within them, each memory serving as leaves caught in an endless autumnal dance where she was everlasting beauty and lighter testament to journeys embarked upon together under starlit skies. Suddenly a rustle from the brush ahead commanded his attention. It wasn't uncommon for creatures of this ancient forest to pay him visits when he ventured here alone in her absence, a reminder that life persisted beyond human reach and time's relentless march forward. As Elliot moved closer, a fox emerged with fur-like spilled sunset over the dappled underbrush. Its eyes met his curious gaze before it too vanished into thin air, as if aware of the intruder in this hallowed ground where her essence still lingered. The encounter was brief yet profound, a silent conversation between souls that transcended words, a reminder Elliot's heart would forever beat with Nora's rhythm within these woods. Elliot found himself drawn to the brook winding its way through this verdant sanctuary. Water flowed over stones as smooth and clear, much like their shared experiences had been when they first fell into steptoe through a journey that meandered just so until destiny steered them apart. Now he would hear only his own echoing footsteps in the still night waters, where reflections of constellations seemed to play hide-and-seek with phantom shadows cast by willow branches swaying gently above. In this solitude Elliot began a practice they had begun many times before, the recitation of poetry that Nora adored. Each verse was an offering in her memory's altar where he could commune silently with the wisdom she left imprinted upon his being like rings within ancient timber. With every line spoken aloud, Elliot felt as if they were both seated beneath this very canopy of stars, a poignant connection to a shared soul that transcended time and space, their laughter mingling in dreams where Nora's spirit would visit him unbidden. The air around the brook carried her essence with every bubbling note, enveloped by mist, as though she had stepped forth from water rehearsal for manifestation of love that defied corporeal constraints and soared on wings woven from moonbeams. Elliot's eyes drifted to the horizon, where night surrendered its dominion grudgingly before dawn's first light. He watched as it painted a canvas upon which memories were immortalized in strokes of purest gold and amber, spectacle that never, as Elliot stood routed to the spot by the brook's gentle embrace, a shiver of melancholy traced their spine like a whisper down an abandoned hallway, or feeling that had been haunting them since Nora's departure from this earthly realm. They reached into deep pockets worn smooth against skin weathered by both sun and sorrow to retrieve the small, leather-bound journal she insisted they carry with her at all times, its pages heavy with ink of dreams scribed upon it, as if for them alone a legacy intertwined within their very core. The cool breeze brought a faint scent of lilacs that Nora loved, and Elliot closed the journal tenderly against an aching heart, finding comfort even now amid memories unshaped by time's relentless march forward or its retreat into shadows beyond reach. They traced their fingertips along the weather-beaten name etched upon one of her cherished rocks, her silent sentinel overseeing the passage from earth to ether and back again when stars alight in nights awash with remembrance. It was then that Elliot felt Nora's presence most acutely, a sensation as tangible yet ephemeral as dew upon morning grass, soul's imprint on the world around them where love had once been unfurling its wings to soar unfettered. Tonight seemed ripe with her essence, and Elliot knew it was time for release, a ritual that allowed their spirit to dance among stars in silent serenade of gratitude and adoration, or ceremony as old as the brook itself, where water bore witness to human hearts breaking free from earthly bonds. Elliot knelt on moss-covered stones nearer to the murmuring waters that mirrored a universe both vast and intimate. They began reciting verses of Nora's poetry as if each word was an offering upon her silent altar, where every syllable resonated in harmony with heartbeats long since stilled. The echoing cadence carried through the night air, intertwined seamlessly within willow whispers and cricket chants, a symphony of natural voices that sung back to Elliot's soulful yearnings for reunion, blending into one continuous thread spun from moonbeams themselves, or tapestry, where Nora's spirit could freely roam. For hours the world held its breath as night transitioned tenderly towards morning, and with each verse that slipped past lips in homage to a love untethered by fate's cruel whimsy or mortal coil, Elliot felt their essence intermingle ever so slightly, a mingling of souls across the divide drawn between life's beginning and its end. They spoke Nora's final words aloud one last time before a hushed reverie befell them, her voice residing within as comfort in absence, an undying echo that promised solace even when stars had faded into obscurity beyond morning's first light, her promise of infinite tomorrows. As the horizon's edge blurred and painted itself with hues too precious to be contained by mere mortal eyes alone, Elliot knew their nightly pilgrimage would always endure, an eternal embrace between earthbound heartstrings that refused release despite passage of seasons or setting sun's retreat behind a world waking from dream. The golden and amber strokes on the canvas unfurled before them like memories made tangible, or vivid reminder that even as time marches forward, love's imprint remains indelible in its ability to transcend beyond mere existence, an immortal dance of two souls intertwined by a shared journey through life and into the realm where nothing truly dies but can be reborn each night under these very stars. In this sacred communion between heartbeats separated only by veils unseen, Elliot felt Nora's spirit rise with them as they stood upon the brink of dawn, or threshold that promised both an end and a beginning, for love knows neither to pause nor falter in its quest towards infinity. And just before their eyes could register this perpetual moment where night kisses day goodbye, Elliot knew Nora's presence lingered as surety upon the air itself, mingling with mist like morning dew, or touch of her essence that no amount of time or separation might ever truly diminish. With a final look back at their solitary vigil by moonlit waters where constellations played hide-and-seek and shadows whispered secre with every passing second that marked their vigil, Elliot and Nora felt as if they were woven into an eternal tapestry where time itself seemed to pause in reverence for the profound love between them. As dawn began its slow approach, carrying with it a promise of rebirth, amidst nature's unwafting cycles, their souls found solace within each other's presence, their sacred communion beyond mere words and touches that transcended any physical bounds set by the waking world around them. The water before Elliot was calm yet ever moving. It mirrored not just his own reflection, but also contained a glimpse of Nora's ethereal image, her essence mingling with mist like morning dew on fresh leaves and petals, an intangible touch that could never truly be eradicated by the tides nor time. As he stood there in silent contemplation beside his beloved's unseen companionship, Elliot allowed himself to surrender fully into Nora's embrace of eternity. Her spirit rose with them and danced upon the water droplets that shimmered like captured sunlight before being gently carried away by ripples. Their shared gaze lingered on one another, as if each held a piece to an unfinished puzzle or testament of their love story written across countless seasons and starlit nights, now slipping into the amber embrace of dawn's first light. Elliot closed his eyes for just long enough that he could feel Nora's heartbeat sink with every pulse within him, her essence woven through time like golden threads in a tapestry stretching beyond their own mortal coil, or love story etched into the very constellations above them. As if to honor this sacred communion between two spirits intertwined by fate and choice alike, Elliot reached down with trembling fingers that had never known hesitation until now. He gently brushed his fingertips against water cool as night's shadow before taking Nora's hand in one of their own. Together they moved forward towards the edge where sky kissed earth and sea met horizontal boundary between realms both physical and spiritual that whispered secrets only to those who dared listen with open hearts and unwavering resolve. With each step closer toward day's inevitable arrival, Elliot felt a growing sense of peace settle upon his soul like velvet cloak wrapped around shoulders weary from bearing witness to much pain or comfort that came not just through Nora's touch but also the knowledge she was beside him always. The night faded into memory with each passing moment. It wasn't an end, simply a transition to new beginnings where love could be reborn beneath these very same stars, as vividly displayed on their shared canvas of life experiences and heartbeats intertwined like the tendrils of ivy embracing ancient stonework. As dawn finally broke through canopy leaves, filtering light into golden streaks that painted Elliot's cheeks with colors reminiscent of Nora's favorite dress, his soul felt lighter than air against a sky now awash in hues too beautiful to bear witness alone, and a more love story forever imprinted upon time and space itself. And just before their eyes could fully register this moment where night kisses day goodbye for yet another eternity within the timeline of human connection, Elliot knew Nora's presence lingered as surety upon the air itself, a touch that no amount of separation or distance might ever truly diminish. Their shared journey into light now took them beyond water's edge to where footpaths wound through whispering woods and fields stretched out like open arms, welcoming new sunrises yet unseen by human eyes, or testament to the enduring power of love that knew neither pause nor falter in its quest towards infinity. The constellations above seemed no longer just distant points but companions on their shared voyage through life, as they stood upon this sacred threshold where past and future converged within present's embrace like threads woven across a tapestry's expanse of timer, love story written not only in memories etched into canvases, tangible or painted with golden strokes, but also carried forth through whispers borne on wind currents traveling beyond the veils unseen. As Elliot and Nora walked hand in hand towards their new day, they knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead for them individuality, loss of loved ones, or personal growth along life's winding. As Elliot and Nora walked hand in hand towards their new day, they knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead for them individuality, loss of loved ones, or personal growth along life's winding pathways, they would face these with strength drawn from the bond between two souls destined to intertwine. The dew on morning blossoms shimmered like tiny diamonds scattered across velvet green, reflecting a world reborn in quiet splendor as sunlight kissed each petal and leaf, awakening them gently after night's tender embrace. Elliot felt the warmth of Nora's skin against his own, a sensation that always brought him back to moments shared beneath this same canopy, where laughter echoed through leaves like music, threading melodies into their hearts and souls were painted with every hue found in nature's palette. With each step they took along the path, Elliot noticed how Nora seemed more alive than she had been before, her eyes holding a spark he thought only dreamt of beholding within his beloved's gaze. They reached an ancient oak standing sentinel at the forest's edge, where countless generations must have once sought solace in its boughs, whispered secrets into ears that knew not to divulge, and stories absorbed deep into roots running as old as time itself. Elliot traced his fingers along a carving etched by an unknown hand, an initial intertwined with the name of someone lost, but never forgotten, Nora's great-grandmother, whose memory was carried forth in their shared legacy through love and laughter that had traversed decades to find them here. It wasn't just footsteps they left behind as Elliot turned towards his companion. It was a symphony of rustling leaves playing counterpoint with the soft murmurs between two intertwined destinies, resonating within their chests like an ineffable hum that promised eternity yet asked for none. Nora's hand tightened around his own, not out of fear or uncertainty, but from acknowledging this moment as a prelude to all tomorrows when they would be together again amidst life's unpredictable sonnet, writing stanzas rich with adventure and hope upon the canvas that fate provided. Inside Elliot's heart swelled an emotion he had seldom felt, profound certainty of a love meant to last not just for this lifetime, but across lifetimes, as unendingly vast as time itself seemed capable, with its endless possibilities stretching out like the horizon. In Nora's eyes lay galaxies yet undiscovered and stories waiting to be told. Their bond was an anchor that held fast against life's relentless tides, but which also propelled them forward towards horizons bright as dawn's first light, piercing through unbroken darkness, illuminating paths where none seemed before. The air carried the promise of a world reborn around them, a testament to resilience and rebirth that mirrored their own journey into new beginnings, while honoring memories past like precious jewels inlaid within an opaline heart made whole by shared experiences both bitter and sweet. Elliot knew, as they continued towards the sunrise-kissed fields, baying fields, where wildflowers swayed to breezes that whispered of futures yet unseen, but undeniably brightened with each passing moment, when two hearts beat in tandem within a symphony spanning across lifetimes. And Nora, her spirit as invigorating and alive as morning dew on thistle-thatched paths, where shadows dance beneath the watchful gaze of ancient trees, whose roots delved deep into histories untold, while their branches stretched towards tomorrow's promise. Her laughter melody that twined with Eliot's, creating a harmony which resonated within his bones and mingled seamlessly amidst the rustling of leaves, as if they were conversing through nature itself about this day yet to come, when two souls would seek solace in each other's embrace against all odds. As twilight approached, painting skies with strokes of pinks and purples, her visual sonnet echoed within their hearts that spoke more deeply than words ever could. Here we stand upon this sacred threshold, where past memories are cherished as jewels in the crown of our shared present, into futures unknown but destined for greatness, because love, like eternal rivers flowing through canyons and valleys carved by time's relentless hand, slowed as night's cool embrace lingered in anticipation around them. A silence settled over the fields that Elliot and Nora walked through. It was not an empty quiet, but filled with shared glances and unspoken promises between lovers who found comfort only within each other's presence as they ventured forth into unknown tomorrows. The sun had slipped behind rolling hills, leaving a soft glow in its wake that mirrored the warmth exuding from their entwined fingers, which caressed not just skin but souls with every tentative touch and lingering kiss upon cheekbones worn like badges of enduring affection. Their footsteps echoed on well-trodden paths where dewdrops shimmered under the lightest sprinkle that occasionally graced them, as if nature itself wished to join in their love story they had composed together, with every breath drawn and heartbeat synchronized. They paused now and then, not just for rest, but because Elliot felt Nora's gaze upon him like a beacon guiding his wandering thoughts back home within the sanctuary of her embrace, while she found solace in knowing that he was always rooted beside her heart with Anwar Zero's servable strength. And it wasn't just their physical journey together through life's verdant expanses. Elliot and Nora traversed years, like seasons within each other, a perpetual spring of growth, a summer rich in the warmth of shared laughter under golden skies, an autumn laden with reflection amidst colorful leaves that fell to make way for new beginnings. Their dialogue was often silent yet profoundly eloquent, as they communicated through eyes brimming with love and lips sealed in promises only the universe could fulfill beyond their understanding, a language of shared dreams, a script penned by fate itself that danced before them like roars guiding sailors across tempestuous waters. Nora's laughter was an invocation to joy, so pure it seemed conjured from realms afar. Her mirthful chuckles resonated within Elliot's very marrow, stirring the essence of happiness that flowed through his veins as surely and ceaselessly as rivers meander towards seas untouchable. And when their bodies spoke in tender caresses against each other's back, or delicate touches across Neser sacred dialect only they understood, where every whisper was a verse, every sigh an ode to the love that held them together through tempests and calms alike. The horizon now blushed with deeper shades of amber as day's last light retreated further beyond their reach. Stars began dotting the sky like pinholes in velvet cloth, each a witness or testament or silent choir accompanying them on this twilight sojourn where time itself seemed to pause and bow before love's unfathomable depth. Elliot gazed upon Nora with eyes that held not just adoration but recognition of the sacred bond they shared, a connection as intricate and unbreakable as ancient tree roots cradling earth's mysteries, their essence intertwined so deeply within one another that to part from them would be like severing limbs essential for life itself. It was this understanding that had carried Elliot through seasons of darkness, allowing him always to find light in Nora, luminescence born not just of her inner radiance but kindled by the very flames within his spirit, which now flickered with love's unyielding fire. As evening's mantle threatened their departure into its embrace, Elliot and Nora stood shoulder to hearted testament that some journeys begin not at dawn nor dusk, but in the quietude between, where they found themselves suspended within a tender balance of shared solitude amidst companionship. The world outside continued unabatedly onward, while time itself seemed contented with their presence, granting them an expanse for reflection and contemplation that only moments like these could offer a reprieve from the relentless march forward, where they found peace in simply being together as lovers first, bound by eternal affection. Their footsteps now carried less weight than when night had once fallen upon